Okay, well, hello everybody. Thank you everyone who is joining live on short notice. I mentioned I intended to do the session today and then didn't have every ingredient necessary until yesterday. Okay, so there's potentially a lot of people who are joining me for the first time today. So I'm going to do a smidge of housekeeping before we dive into what we're talking about today. For let's see, other couple of housekeeping things. Just because, like I said, I think some folks will be joining for the first time, and it might be good for people to know about these different. I appreciate the chat telling me that there has not been sound. We're off to a good start, everybody. Okay, thanks, Restream. All right, starting back over. Appreciate it, everyone. Yep, super short summary. Business Central generalist. I've done lots and lots of odds and ends. As I was saying, housekeeping wise, there is a now available in hard copy version of the first 20 hours with Business Central. And thank you everyone for sticking with me on things. Other odds and ends that are free, useful utilities. If you go to the articles, there is a blogs roundup delivery. This is a newsletter type thing that's I set up and sends out daily or weekly roundups of tweets and blog posts. So if you haven't signed up for that yet, you might find it to be very useful. So this is a good place to go. These are free. There's no advertising. It's all meant to be just community content. And last but not least, if you're the sort of person who hasn't yet joined the Business Central Discord, which some of you are joining today from the Business Central Discord, I would encourage you to check that out. I will link that again in my Twitter today. It's super useful stuff. So, okay, housekeeping all done. So let's talk about what are we doing today. Today is going to be a little bit of a bonkers sort of thing. I don't know how many of you experienced when you've invited a good friend over and they're early and you haven't gone to the store yet. You just go run errands together for a little while before the intended hangout. This is sort of going to be that. I have a brand new app that I need to be in AppSource. And I realized that all of the things that I'm going to be going through as part of putting it up on AppSource are going to be steps that you all are going to need to follow too. So since I've been through this once with 2 apps successfully in the past 30 days, I figured it'd be a good idea to share and have you ride along. So let's go all the way back to the beginning. They cover the docs. The docs section of Microsoft's site covers lots of the basics. Sometimes it's really helpful. Sometimes it's not. It's mixed results. There's lots of prerequisites to things. So the first of all is you have to be a Microsoft partner. Go figure. You have to have configured a partner network account. You have to be set up in Partner Center. You also have to get registered as a publisher, which involves some contract agreements, and there's a bunch of different steps involved in that. So you need to do all those things. They sound easy, but they can take a little while, so plan ahead. You also have to go through a process to sign up to a PartnerSource Business Center account so that you can manage your object ranges. We'll be talking more about that. And then you also have to get some different things registered with Microsoft. And the order of this is a little wonky to me. I'm presuming that the steps here are assuming that you've already built your solution and you're ready to go. For example, here they're suggesting that one of the things you need to do as step 3 is get your app object range. But they also then later say you need to register your unique prefix or suffix. Well, you need your prefix and suffix probably earlier. So this process, I would encourage people to do as soon as they're set up as a partner. Get your prefix, and this is as simple as you have to contact the Microsoft team and say, "I would like the following prefix." And they'll work with you. Generally speaking, it's a good idea to give them a list of potential 3-digit affixes that you would like either as a prefix or a suffix. You have to send them your MPN ID, the official publisher name that will have to match the app.json, which we'll go into. And it's, you've got to provide a handful of different suggestions to them. Quick clarification on the audience for this. We're going to be going back and forth a whole lot. There's going to be topics that we're going to cover that are marketing. There's going to be topics that we're covering that are going to be in the realm of legal or sales. There's going to be a lot of technical steps. We're also going to be having to do some cloud configuration. And I'm hoping that kind of doing this beginning to end run will give a better sense of just how much often people don't realize goes into this. So you're already starting to get a sense of it because we're having to go with Microsoft and we're doing agreements and we're doing all sorts of ranges. We potentially have to go through getting into the Collaborate program, which involves applying to a Collaborate program in the Microsoft Partner Network so that you can get a key to be able to download the upcoming versions. And you have to have set up Azure Active Directory. So if you're on-prem Active Directory, you potentially have some extra fun steps there. So there's all sorts of things that are just baked into this assumption that you might be working in a partner practice where the global administrator knows nothing about Business Central. Well, you're going to have to cozy up to your global administrator for your partner account and walk them through what they need to do. And for the most part, getting into Collaborate is contacting the Microsoft team. They provide the email directly here, and you have to say your publisher, display name, the MPN ID, first and last name, and work email. So that way you know who's allowed to have access to that. So that's all nice. Okay. All right. Nothing too crazy there. Let's see. Much like setting up an ERP, it's always a challenge of where do you even start. I would say one of the first places to start, get your partnership, get your affix, get all of these mechanical bits in this getting started with building apps, with the exception of the object range, because that you're going to need to do in a little bit. So I will talk to that a little bit more shortly. I do have a question that had come in on chat. Will this session be recorded? Good news. It is currently it's going out live on YouTube and Twitter and LinkedIn and a few other places. All of those platforms will automatically have this still be available to watch later. You can pause, rewind. I'll try, for example, on YouTube, I'll try to come back and add some table of content markers of the different sections that we're going to cover all the different topics, because some parts are you set up once and you never have to think about it again. So, okay. So now we've gone through all the rigmarole of becoming a Microsoft partner. What do we have to do if we've now built our extension? Well, let's take a look at some of the checklists. There are two that we have to care about. There is the marketing validation checklist. There's actually more than two, but it's fine. The marketing checklist is one of the big ones. And this is almost the finish line checklist, because a lot of these things that it's going to be asking for in this checklist are in the process of creating the AppSource offer. So we'll be doing that. And I'm not the only one who's covered some of these topics. So I would say that if you are looking to other sources about just some of the bits and pieces, there are. I learned from Eric's stream on Let's Put an App on AppSource. He covered some of these steps, and he covered some of them so well that my first app went through first try. So thank you, Eric. The let's see here. So in our marketing validation checklist, we've got lots of things. We're going to need to have some names and some descriptions, and all of these are individual little checklists that are, some of these are very, very simple things. And so they become like, oh yeah, it's just 20 steps. But some of these are going to be much more significant lift than they look like in a simple checklist. For example, you have to have a privacy policy for your company, and you need to have a support page for your company, and you're also going to have links to like terms and conditions. Well, if you're a small developer, you may never have made any of those things before. There are some websites that will help you generate those. I would say look around, consult local attorneys. Unfortunately, that process might take you a lot longer than you think if you've never done it before. Once you've created your terms and conditions, then probably it becomes easier. So some of these are capital sort of efforts that you do once, and then you don't have to think about it. But some of them are a doozy. For example, when you upload your product to AppSource and you're going, all right, I'm ready to put it on AppSource, one of the things you have to upload is supporting documents like a white paper or brochure. And you might get to that stage and go, geez, now I got to go back to the marketing guys. We need a PDF file that talks about what our product is. And you have to meet some very particular requirements in all the things that you're doing too. For example, for logos, it has to be this specific set in this range of sizes. Has to be, or it'll be rejected. Screenshots, you have to have a minimum of 3, and they have to be this resolution. And there's also some important rules there. You're not allowed to include like Dynamics logos or trademarks in those screenshots. So you got to be very thoughtful and thorough about creating your assets ahead of time before you're at the upload to the asset stage. One of the things that I did for myself, and you guys will probably want to do something similar, but in your organization, is just run through these checklists, reading through them to understand what they all are. And as you read them and understand what they are, go through and create a little Excel list of all of those different steps. And for larger organizations, you may need to also figure out who's going to do what, what teams are responsible for all the different parts that we're going to be creating. And just work up this list. We're going to go through a bunch of these. So the other major checklist is the technical validation. So I love that they added to the beginning of this. Your first requirement is to develop your extension. I appreciate that. I hope someone had a chuckle adding that. That's true. If you haven't developed an extension, it will fail. So that's fine. Okie doke. We're going to go through each of these because we're going to have to do all of these. So let's see. Oh, there is a ticking time bomb one in this list that if you haven't done it for your organization, could take you weeks. So something very important to be aware of. This little guy right in here. The .app file must be digitally signed. Well, that sounds like a no big deal. You go, okay, well, there's probably some great blog posts, and, they've got this guide on signing an app file. There are both of those things. This is a good guide, and there are great blog posts about how to do these steps. But what you need is a certificate, a code signing certificate, not an SSL. You need a code signing certificate for your organization that matches the publisher name on AppSource. Well, fun thing for you there, as I discovered, is that part of the process of getting your code signing certificate is you have to go through a third party company. You have to buy that signing certificate, just like an SSL, and they will do all of the steps of verifying your identity as the applying person, and they will also want to affirm all of your identity information as a company. This means that your company's typically, it varies, this typically means that your company's address and phone number both need to be in public registries for your country. They often don't tell you which registries. You have to have a physical non-PO box, non-mail box. It has to be an actual address and a phone number that they will call to reach out to you to verify your identity. So I know, for example, 2 or 3 partners in the industry who, they set up a side hustle to try to get something onto AppSource. Well, those little side companies that they built, they're handled by a PO box. They couldn't get an SSL for their company because there was no physical address. I know that I ran into the issue of, we set up our company in March, and then with our company set up, we got phone systems. Well, go figure. That meant we never went back to the business registry for Sweden to say, hey, here's our phone number. So I had to wait a week or two for all of the sites to replicate to get all those phone numbers. And it will vary by your country. So you as soon as you start thinking about getting on AppSource, you need to start thinking about putting together the code signing certificate application, because that can take a while. I know I had to poke the provider I was buying it from. They did a great job. I ended up with Sectigo, I believe, was one of the folks that I used. There are plenty of others out there. I can't say if the experience with them was great or terrible. I don't know. It was sufficient. They got me what I needed. So I did a code signing process with them, and they guided me through it. So it got me done. But be aware, that's one of those things that it's a tiny little item in the checklist that's as dodoy as you need a name for your extension, but in fact it's potentially weeks of work. So bear in mind that some of these checklist items, you want to look at them early on. And if we look through, I don't think there were any other big gotchas in here that messed me up, but it's something to be aware of. Yeah, I think that's it. Oh, and I have a small tiny bit of great news. In my checklist, I still had this item in here up until a couple of days ago, scenario doc. That just got pulled out of the documentation, out of the technical validation checklist 2 days ago. So yeah. What that was we had to provide to them a Word document or PDF or whatever that outlined all of the steps that if you were going to do manual testing of the extension to prove that it worked. I don't know what the reasons for pulling that from the checklist are, but I am very thankful to not have to do the step-by-step, here's how you test it in a Kronos environment, manual step process. So that's pretty cool. Let's see. So I have created for today an extension. Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, chat. That manual process was abandoned as a thing a year ago. They've just gotten to pulling it out of the checklist. Okay. As you will see later in the offer, there are some things in the Azure offer creation process that you have to add something to the file, even though they're not going to use it, and it'll make you laugh. It made me laugh. I'm a little annoyed that I spent a lot of time making a testing documentation for my last solution. Oh well. But thank you, everybody. It's so hard to keep up, isn't it? Okay, so what the heck are we making today? Well, on Friday, I had a request from somebody, or at least an idea spawned on Twitter. It's a strangely popular place for Business Central technical people. Someone asked, if there was any way to change calculation on the item card to change the flow fields around in a good way. A nice, easy way to say, hey, this quantity on sales order, it's not showing what I expected it to. Is there any way I can adjust it? And the answer is, of course, no. You can make a per tenant extension that adds one that does what you need or whatever have you. And it got me thinking about some of the different needs that people have had over time to do different availability ideas, because every customer has different inventory needs. Like, I want to be able to see my inventory by location, and I can use the built-in inventory by location, but maybe you're using a third-party solution or a custom thing that you need to drill into that data a little bit more, or you need to see stock levels in the other company to see if you can create an order, if you can promise something to a customer. So what I did based on that was made a little extension that I'm pretty happy with, and I'm going to throw this on AppSource and we'll see how it works for people. That allows you to define a calculation. So here, let's take basic availability. We can say, all right, I would like the basic availability to display as basic available, no dot, please, which is just going to show to the user the inventory plus the quantity on purchase order minus the quantity on sales order. I don't care about assemblies or jobs or any of those different bits and pieces. Okay, sure. And if we test that calculation out, what does that look like? Well, let's run it real quick. We can see that there's 155 on inventory, 0 on purchase order, some on quantity, some on sales order. So here's the resulting total, 146. Okay, that one doesn't do anything really special for us, but, it's nice to have in our list here of here's the basic available, and I can see the history behind that and see, okay, this is where it calculated that from. Well, the question and scenario that came up on Friday that we needed was a little bit of a different one, where they wanted to be able to look at the sales lines, and they wanted to look at the quantity, not just the outstanding quantity, the total sales quantity. Well, how can you do that? Well, okay, here you go. Let's grab the sales line quantity field, and what I did for this is we wanted to filter that based on order and type. And there we go. And if we do our test calculation on this for our desk, and I'm going through this a little bit because it's going to be relevant for the marketing. So here we go. Sales line. We can see that there are 9 on these 2 sales orders. Cool. And just for extra giggles, because it's come up for a number of my customer scenarios, I also added support for, I want to go look at the total quantity of the item ledger entry in Kronos Distribution, the other company. So, okay, yeah, no problem. What do we have for Kronos Distribution in the other company? Oh, we have 100. Cool. Now we know. And, little bits and pieces like this. It's just a small extension, but I think it removes the need for customization for some of the different parts of inventory life. So if we look on our fact box, here we can see, here is the descriptions that I gave it, base available. Click on it, we can see all the details. Cool. All right, so that's all working. So, great. Okay. I built all that, and just like you would do when you're creating your first extension and everything like that, I created that in a Visual Studio Code environment. It is a very basic app.json at the moment, and I was developing that in a custom range, because that's what you kind of need to do if you don't know ahead of time what you're making. So the difference is, let me zoom out a little bit here. Some people are new to Business Central entirely. If you did not know, object ranges 0 to 49,999, basically 50,000. Those are reserved for Microsoft. 50,000 to 100,000 effectively is for custom objects and per tenant extensions. And then you have to request from Microsoft some of the other ranges that you would potentially want to work with. So if we are looking back at the starting to build the apps, this is what they're talking about here in the request an object range. To do this, you have to know what are you going to make. And you have to request an object range from Microsoft by emailing the people. And currently they have this little link for you to download the form. I'm not a fan of this form, but I am pleased to say that in chatting with Microsoft, they did allow me to say they are going to be fixing this form because it's confusing. So let's pop this open. Good old file exchange system. I don't know how many of you have been around long enough to swear about this system with me, but there it is. It's still alive. Bizarrely. So yeah, let's get that open on the right screen here. And let's talk about this, because you're going to need to do this if you want to be on AppSource. And here is this bonkers form. Woohoo! I'm very glad to hear that they are improving it. So first of all, you have to request a range from Microsoft. And the way that that works these days is they just give you a big giant, here's 1,000 objects to allocate between your modules however you want. And I find it really funny that we're currently in a place where they're still using the old module language. So you may see a variety of different places where they're mixing up a lot of different terms all at once. So for the most part, extension equals app equals module. Those mostly all overlap and can be used interchangeably. Mostly. So in this case, when you're requesting for the first time, you are going to, and boy, is that a little tough to see on screen, I imagine. You have to request a new object range and register a new module within it. If you are like me, even if you've been around for a long time, you probably find this confusing, especially if you're foolish enough to try to read these instructions where they tell you, go look at phase 4 for dual use rights, and there are 3 sections. So I am very appreciative of the fact that they are cleaning this up. So what would it look like if we were doing this for the very first time? Well, we would be choosing, we're going to choose that it's going to be for Business Central. And if you are going to back sell your solution or sell it to on-premise install, you also check that box. No big deal. Now, they ask you your preferred object range. And basically the old cow stuff is the sub 69 million, and the Business Central specific is the 75, 70 to 75. It's just what pool are they pulling from, so you don't have to know all that stuff. But now, separately, you are going to need your Partner Source Business Center account number, which is different from your NPM number. And that you get from our good old friend over here, the Partner Source Business Center. I'm not going to show mine on screen. I don't know if it matters, but you do your partner name and all that fun stuff. And then on section 2 and 3, you just name your module. That's it. To the best of my knowledge, I don't think there's validation that requires you to match this to the name of your extension. But I typically have done so in the past. So, for example, for me, this would be SBI in Tally. And for me, I want to potentially sell it under dual use rights, so I added it over here too, in Tally. That was about it. And then I emailed this off to Microsoft and said, please help. So that will get you through the process. When you need to get your next new module, you don't do the assign a new object range if you've still got available objects. How do you know if you have available objects? Well, guess what? All of the object management within that range they hand you is your problem, so to speak. And that is one of those charming things that you get to come to the old Partner Source Business Center for. For those of you who have been here before, you probably appreciate our old friend here. I hope that the potato that it runs on doesn't run out of juice anytime soon, because we need it. So in the developer tools section, there is this manage objects area, and it's a little confusing to work with, for sure. But I'm going to create my new object range today, because that's what you would need to do as well. So you would say, which product line are you configuring? And if you do search and you have not created any apps before, you'll see nothing. What you should see from Microsoft, however, is they will have given you the object range in an email to let you know what it is, and it should show up in the list over here. And this will be a list of all the different ranges you've gotten over time. And chat, feel free to correct me if I say anything daffy, or just inexperience shows on what we're doing. And in theory, if you have submitted and gotten your approval on your module names, you should see your little modules here. So here's my SBI InTally. All right, cool stuff. So you have to say which object ranges for each and every object type, query and page and code unit and blah, 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 blah. I mean, it still even has forms in there. You still have to specify within those object ranges when you add this to someone's license, what do they get? Okay. The good news is that you can import and export this to Excel, and that's what I have historically done. It's a heck of a lot easier to work with. The partner source permissions. Let me pop open Excel and bring that on over. Alrighty. So, yeah. So, for example, for the SpareBrains licensing app that some of you may be familiar with, which we're going to be making use of today, you can see that I said, okay, for Business Central and Business Central on-prem, here are the object IDs, and it's for this module number, blah, blah, blah. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to add to the end of this list a new range for the InTally objects, which thankfully are not too big. If we look at the source code behind this one and we look at our list, it's a pretty small extension. I'm probably going to give it about 10 object range for every object type and just call it good enough. That seems fine. So let's do that real quick. So we're going to be nice and lazy about this. We're just going to copy this all down and then update the relevant values. So we're going to say, okay, this is going to be 720, and we're going to do 729. 10 feels fine. I don't anticipate needing lots and lots of objects for this. Even new features are going to be building new stuff into the space. So there's that. And then we need our module name, which we can see in here is 590 SBI InTally. Okay, well, that's cool. So we'll copy that down and we'll do 590. Looks like they're leaving a 5 gap for all my stuff. Like, all right, sure. So we'll copy that on down. And unfortunately, today is going to be we're going into the weeds on all the little steps because you have to do all this. But we also need the module ID off to the right-hand side. This is tied under the hood to what's in here. I think if we export the file name, we'll see the module ID, or was it as simple as selecting? Aha. Okay, if we selected in the drop down here, we can see it's 68904 under the hood. Okay, cool. So we're gonna do 68904. Okay, and we'll copy that on down. And we'll save that, and we're going to drop that to a CSV file, and we need to switch that to our good friend CSV, and yep, sure, OneDrive is fine for that. Okay, so let me do a quick change back to just all the generic objects, and now we can choose file and import, and we'll grab our CSV file that we just made, which is in my OneDrive, just sitting in the root here. So that's easy enough. Let's see if it lets us. I probably have to close that in Excel first. Import. Invalid file format. Oh. Yeah, it's tab delimited. Okay. Let's save this as. Yep. Since I saved it in OneDrive, now it wants to save a copy. This is a tab delimited text file. I forgot about it. So yep, we've got one here. So we'll just do this as new -2. Sure. And we'll come back to our files. And yeah, so it's daffy, but this is all the stuff we got to do. So what I've now done is it says that it successfully imported 63. It created 9 new object permissions, and it failed on creating 9. My hunch is that in the drop downs here, if I switch to Business Central on-prem and I change to Intally, it's 903. So different module IDs for those files. So let's go fix that. So for the on-prem, we have to be 903. And we'll just pop those down there. Okay. Helpful pasting Excel. I appreciate it. All right. So now we'll save that again as text. And it's generally a good idea just to keep this as a rolling thing. You can always just import the objects again. It doesn't cause any harm to do it that way. So nice and easy. You see exactly what happens. Okay. And there we go. So new objects created, 9. So great. Now, if we look at Business Central and we look at Intally, we should have a set of object ranges in 720 to 729. Perfect. Okay, so that puts us in a good place now where we can now name and number our extension. So what I had done was I was working in a temporary workspace, and I am going to create a new extension and just copy over all the source file. And we'll talk about a couple of the settings that will help you out with working with those in just a second. So if we grab our source folder here for the Intally side of things, and I grab all of my source folder for the proto calculator. Sure. Okay, so let's grab our source and Visual Studio Code, and we can grab packages. Sure. And we'll drop that on in here. Whip. There we go. And I'm going to copy over my app.json, but we're going to modify it up. Skip. I think my copy didn't quite take there. Let's copy. Okay, so this folder, this SBAI Intally, is tied to an empty Azure DevOps repo because I didn't want to check in stuff and then renumber it later. And plus, you know, just testing environment, it's fine to blow things away. So let's, in my little Docker that I'm using to do all these different things, let's blow away the settings that I've got in here for this. So we'll uninstall this and delete the data so that it's clear and ready for a new version of the extension in a whole new object range. And that way we don't have numbering conflicts, because we need to add all the dependency stuff for licensing. That's going to be one of our fun topics for today as well. So if we now look at our Intally, we have the app.json, and here we go. We've got the source codes all in here. Everything exists and whatnot. And now we can, with our shiny new object range that we got from Microsoft, we can grab the start and end range, boop, and boop. And we should get a nice and easy set of complaints from the problem list about those being completely in the wrong ranges right now. So that's fine. And we also need to turn this into a workspace here. So let's look at the workspace settings. And I'm going to bring over a bunch of settings from the other environment real quick that we're going to talk through what's in here, because there's a bunch of good stuff. Okay, so we want, particularly, we're going to want a bunch of different things. We want, interesting, this opened a settings.json, not a workspace file. That was unexpected. Okay. Yeah, we'll go with it for now. That's fine. It's only one extension. If you are planning to do a lot of automated testing and development work around this, you really should be working with a full workspace. And a lot of the steps we're going to do today manually, you should be doing with pipelines. I would strongly, strongly encourage that. I am absolutely going to come back and set up a lot of pipelines for this. This was just the presuming you have none of these things side of everything. And since it popped us into a settings.json, we don't need to be inside of settings. All right, so now we need to add, most importantly, to our code analyzers. Not only should you be using CodeCop and UICop, but now we add our AppSource cop, which will blow up at us about a bunch of stuff in here shortly. But it is a good idea to think about your strategies. I've, for example, heavily used Waldo's extension to organize my extensions because they're usually small enough that this reorg is a good fit for the scope of what I'm doing. And I definitely use the object name prefix, so that's all good. So we'll save those settings, and anytime I change the settings file and change the app.json, we've done lots of stuff to this, probably a good idea to reload. Right, Steve? So now that it's going to reload this environment, it's going to find lots of information and probably a variety of problems. I mean, the biggest one is that none of these objects are in the right range, but I did at least name them all with a prefix. So nice and easy. My 3-letter prefix plus a extension specific one. It sacrifices 5 for naming everything. Yeah, there we go. 54 problems. Good stuff. That's more like what I was expecting. Most of them are, hey, this is way outside the allowed ranges. Absolutely true. In the commands, we have the AL toolbox. Renumber all objects. Let's do it. Blam. Everything's changed. Alrighty. So now we'll go ahead and save all. Lots and lots of files to be changed there. Thankfully, they're all the same name, so we're not doing anything too crazy. I still haven't checked in the first check-in. I also haven't added a git ignore to this space, so that's also a should have. Let me grab a good git ignore file, because definitely going to want that. Let's see here. Just looking on my other screen through a couple of folders, but let's get a git ignore over here. At least something to get us started. Whip. There we go. Just to get rid of the AL packages and some of the various .app files. That should drop our list from 39 to 28. Good. Perfect. Okay, so now in our problem list, we're down to a variety of issues, and most of them are field numbers in our table extensions. Perfect. Good stuff. Okay, so let's fix that real quick. I'm pretty sure our AL toolbox has renumber all fields. Let's do renumber fields just in the folders that we're in here. Renumber. And we're going to start from... Let me copy that starting number here. Great. Okay. And somehow or another on my start screen, I managed to try to convince Cortana to help me code. That would not go well. Okay, so renumber fields, and we'll start from here. Whip, there we go, all good. These are all just extensions on some either settings or adding some flow fields, so nothing too major. All right, there we go. So now we're down to our major 9 for AppSource cop, and this is perfectly reasonable and correct problems. I didn't give it a brief description. All of my privacy statement, EULA, helps, URLs, logos, all that fun stuff. So first of all, let's fix up. I'm going to open up on the other screen my licensing app here, and we're going to copy and paste a bunch of that because most of these links are the same. I'm not going to show my screen screen with that one because it also has something that we're going to talk about in just a second. Let's see here. So we need a brief description, we need a regular description, and then we need a whole bunch of privacy stuff and a logo. So for those, I've got those already all set up. This is an example of the things that you will be able to solve probably once for your whole organization. Let's see. And we've got our privacy statement, the EULA, support path. I don't do context-sensitive help for these apps at the moment. And now with the logo side of things, I usually will just create a logo folder and then put the PNG that I'm uploading to AppSource right in there and just use that one. I did see the question in chat about prefix or suffix. I personally just tend to use prefix because then when I'm typing the object names, it's at the beginning and it's faster for me to see that it's matching. But the search does the same thing over in the affix side because it does context matching. So there's no, I can't say there's any real pros and cons. You know, it's whatever works for you. Okay, so alrighty, I have a whole folder full of assets that are ready to go that I'm put together for this, including logos. So let's make a little logo folder, and I'm going to use my logo I made for Intally's basic stuff for AppSource. I'm not a graphic designer, and until I sell at least one copy, I am not paying a graphic designer. Let's see. So that'll work, and we'll just make sure that that is the right name for the path so it doesn't complain, because that helps. There we go. All right. So now we've got a logo. One of the assets in your checklist is you must have that 350 by 350 PNG of the logo of your app. So there we are. Okay. That gets us that one, and we're also going to talk a little bit about one thing you should be doing, and this gets us back into the wonderful world of IT related instead of marketing. One of the things you should absolutely be doing, and Christoph on his MyNav blogs has a fantastic guide to using this, is Application Insights Connection String. What this will do is this will tell the app when it gets installed into people's environments in the cloud, is where should I report my telemetry to and all that fun stuff. So that can be very, very important because it might be the only information you have of who's actually installed it. The theory behind AppSource is that when you go to Business Central AppSource, let's go and take a look here. The theory is when you come on in here and you go, hey, this Excel importer looks pretty cool, free trial, blam, and you install it into your environment, it's supposed to send you a lot of contact information so you can do follow-up with the customer to let them know about things like installation guides and product keys and all that fun stuff. I have not yet once gotten a single message from Microsoft on the CRM setup. It did absolutely work correctly when I tested it, but no environment that's installed this app yet has done anything other than report its telemetry via the telemetry key. So the App Insights connection string is very, very important. And if you've only been in the NAV world and you're unfamiliar with Azure, woohoo, let me tell you, well, welcome to the wonderful world of you're now also an Azure IT administrator, Business Central developer. You have to configure an application insight library in AppSource for it to report its telemetry to. And yes, I'm pretty sure I set up correctly, chat. If you want to have a discussion about that, we can certainly have that offline. I am not the only person who has experienced a significantly higher volume of not getting leads from the system on this. So So let's create a new resource. This is going to be an app insight because we're going to need this. And one of the scary things about, I probably have to type it exactly, application insights. One of the crazy things about setting all these things up is you just have to know all this stuff. And if you're an old time nav partner, like this is pretty, now I feel like I'm going crazy here. I thought I was doing the right thing to create a resource. Let's go to my resource list. Okie dokie. So, all resources, yep. And I'm still stumbling around in Azure. So those of you who are used to it and you're kind of going, oh man, yep, that's the nature of it. So let's create an application insights. There we go. I don't know why it was searching the market space and not finding this one. It's fine. Whatever. Okay, so this is going under my main subscription, and I'm going to add this under my AppSource Insights group, and this one is going to be for my SBI in Tally. Sure, and I'm in North Europe region, and we'll go with Workspace based, I guess, and I'll put that into my App Insights North Europe workspace, I guess. If you guys are going, I don't understand what you're doing, that's okay, me neither. I know I can query stuff when I'm done. Let's see. Okay, so validation passed, create. And this may take a moment or two, but I want to kind of show you the idea of it. And the deployment will take a moment. So while we're waiting on that, why am I... Okay, or it could work instantly. Unexpected. So the idea behind the App Insights here, if we go to, say, the licensing app real quick, is that we can go into, if I recall correctly, and Christoph is going to laugh at me, but nonetheless, here we are. We can run some queries against the environment and see, okay, well, who's installed? Oh, okay, nobody in the last 7 days. That's fine. Let's do from November. Sure. There we go. Okay, so yeah, in late November, there were a handful of people who installed the extension, and here we get some telemetry data. Hopefully there's nothing in here that's going to be like GDPR related issues. I think we're fine. But it gives us some information about, okay, this was installed into production environment. I think if I scroll down, it shows a company name, so I'm going to be less inclined to show this in much detail. But this is where you get some info about at least what region of the world, what environment types are involved, and all that sort of stuff. As mentioned, Christoph has great details on his blogs about how to look at this, and there is a massive wealth of great app insight analytic tools that Kenny and team put together. So this is a whole world I have to get familiar with because it gives you great info. Oh, thank you, Christoph. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, we can see here, for example, the two events I'm filtering on are install and upgrade, and I only have one version of market space, so of course there's no upgrade notices. That's fine. Okay, great. Well, that's roughly what it looks like, and thank you, Christoph, for confirming. Yeah, this was apparently in the UK. Neat. All right. So you also are able to filter on all sorts of error messages, API hits. There's lots and lots of data you can mine out of this in a smart way so that you can resolve problems that are happening with your app. So it is very, very valuable to create those links and create the App Insight key. I am going to probably do that towards the end of setting all this up before I do the code signing. I will do that off camera, so that way it's not using my telemetry key in public. Let's grab the extra info we need for my solution here. SBI in Tally. I need just a brief and a description here. So let's go with brief. Here we go. There you go. Now we put back on our marketing hat as devs and we try to put together some sort of like, what am I actually putting into this as some sort of description? Let's go with that. Sure. It's good enough for what we're doing. So, alrighty, cool. And it does tell us, you got to specify the key here. So I will do that, but towards the end. So excellent, good stuff. That gets us through the object numbering part of the checklist. So that's all excellent. Let's take a look at some of the things we got. We have made the extension. We haven't made the offer precisely. Yeah, we haven't made the offer yet, so we're fine there. We don't hardcode dates. I don't have any HTTP requests or control add-ins. We are going to do code signing in a moment. The scenario docs are dead. Application area, if you haven't run into this problem, your application comp would be screaming if you forgot it. Permission sets. I did not create a permission set for this because I just renumbered all these objects, and it's funny to me that the AppSource is not complaining that I'm lacking permissions. Generate some permission sets. I feel like that, yeah, that's just going to create the garbage XML. Get out of here. So let's make a new permission set. I'm thinking that we're going to want 2 permission sets real quick. Let's do permission set. And we're going to call this SBIT reader. And we'll include all the extension objects. And we don't want to include any other permissions in that object. So here we go. Cool. This adds all the fun stuff. And when we save it, it gets renamed. And, I named it wrong. Talking and typing. Okay, so there we go. Excellent. All right, so the reader permission set is not going to need any of the modify, insert, or delete to our calculations or our setup table. It is fine that they're going to have modify, insert, and delete to the steps and the availability. That's perfectly okay. That's the result. We could be more granular with this and give indirect permissions and put permissions in the objects. We don't need to do that in this case, so that's fine. So we'll drop that all down to read permission for those, and there we go. Now they've got all the permission sets, so we'll pass the permission set validation. However, we also need to have a permission set for the manager role, so SPVIT manager. Sure. There we go, and that defaults in all the objects with full permissions. Good to go. So, permission sets, check. And this falls into the category of, hey, you get to meet with your product team and discuss with them what permission sets you should be including with your solution, because many people need different permissions. So, we will test publish this shortly. I am at the moment being bold and launching a version 1 without the testing toolkit and doing some validation on this. I'm waiting to read the new edition of Luke's book on automated testing that is now apparently going to be launching tomorrow, to make sure I'm being smart about that. And as I said, I mostly am doing this to get this into the AppSource stream. So I'm pretty sure it's going to work well. Pretty sure. All right. Let's see. There are some events that you're not supposed to use. I just don't use them. It is a good idea if you're doing upgrades, if you're maintaining code over time, which when I update this next week with all the testing code unit having been run on it, make sure everything works correctly, not just me run it. Then if I were to have any upgrade code that does things, I need to do some extra steps in my pipeline or work process to also do some upgrade testing. But this is first version, no upgrades required. Let's see, web services. We need to not present any UI, so no GUI allowed, fails and all that sort of stuff. Affix, we've got it. Object range, we've got it. Again, they sound simple in the checklist, but it takes time. When I asked for the new module for the object, I asked on Sunday and got mine on Wednesday morning, so it's something you can't leave to the last minute. Because then you also have to do all of the numbering afterwards. You got to get your new license. For example, I'm going to need to go download a new license that includes that, I believe. So we'll have to do that. I think if I test install it, then yeah. No, really, we should be using testing. Yeah, we're going to still ignore it anyways. Data classification, that's a tech thing. You've got to set the values of things. AppSource would be complaining, but I did that all along. So like, for example, if I go look in my setup table, everything has at least some data classifications. This one's system metadata, so it's easy. But a lot of other stuff is account data. Let's see how you, again, some odds and ends around how you place things. When you upload your .app file to AppSource, it should not be a runtime package, which is fine. You have to do extra steps to make a runtime package, so we're okay there. Translation files must exist. Well, I did use the translation file feature in my app.json. I turned that on. It's only in English at the moment. I could also potentially upload it in bad Swedish. So let's see. And then if there are dependencies, we need to potentially include that. Well, here's the thing. Right now, you could just install this. There's no monetization to this app. You could just start using this and use this forever. So what do you do as a partner about that? This is something where I'm going to take a little detour and I'm going to make my app hooked into my licensing module, and we are going to put back on our sales and business hat, and we are going to make the necessary components in my Gumroad platform so that people could buy the subscription key for this app. So if you're a new person in the space and you're potentially wanting to use the free SpareBrain licensing thing, you would have to go through these steps as well. And you're going to see some of my Gumroad data, which I'm not going to show anyone's email addresses, but you'll see some of my sales figures, and that's fine. It's fine. So when you create a product on Gumroad for subscription, as I said, you'll see my data. I don't care. It's not a lot. When you create a product in Gumroad that is going to be tied to a licensing key, that is in the family of a membership. They added the Patreon style membership functionality and then added onto that, since it was a good subscription based mechanism already, the ability to give someone a license key with that membership. So we're going to create a new product. Alrighty, and we're going to charge on a recurring basis, and we're going to call this SBI in Tally. And then we just put our pricing in per month, and we customize. Alright, so now we're going to need to put all of our fun salesy sort of stuff, which, by the way, if you haven't worked with your team, this is a stage where you're going to need to have a lot of your marketing and sales team have put together stuff for you if you're having to put this up. For example, one of the things that we're going to need to upload to AppSource is a brochure, a white paper. I mentioned that, I think, earlier. So you'll have to have like a PDF, like, what does this actually do? You're going to need to have those things at a time. So in my case, I can, copy some of the information over from the brochure that I've worked up into my Gumroad space here. So, so we'll call this, we'll do a heading on this. And cool stuff. Good enough for the moment. And I'll come back and update this. And I like to give this a URL that makes a little more sense. So sparebrain.gumroad.com/intally. All right, and we got to give it a thumbnail, which I'm just going to use our AppSource intally logo again, which let me come on over into my AppSource for Intally, and here's our logo. Let's grab the higher res one, because why not? They like 600 by 600, so sure, here you go. And then we also need to have a cover image for it, and that's what's going to show up in here. So we'll do that real quick. And for those of you who are not using Gumroad, don't worry, we won't be spending a whole lot more time here. This is just a small detour. So there we go, just some sort of preview of what's actually in here, and we can see over on the right hand side roughly what it looks like. We get a little preview. So we'll go ahead and name this one, which is going to be our per environment subscription. Sure. And we'll also set an annual price that's discounted. Not like a lot, but some. Why not? And now people can potentially buy annually the subscription key, and that allowed a lot of customers feedback so far is that they would want to just buy a year at a time and not have to think about it. Frighteningly and optionally, Gumroad also allows you to turn on the flexible payment system where you can put on the minimums. I don't know, I wouldn't want to do this for a subscription, but maybe if you were releasing like a free utility and you wanted to have at least some control over it, you could potentially put something in here where it's like, maybe €5 a month, but if it's of more value to someone, they can choose to pay more. So that's kind of cool. Okay, and I, through the SpareBrain licensing app, manage free trials in the app itself rather than on Gumroad, so we're not going to turn on the free trial thing here. And you can choose to automatically end subscriptions and things like that, but we don't need any of that. Okay, but the main big thing that we need is this unique license key per sale. Turn that on, and away we go. So that will get us where we need to go. So let's save changes, and we'll publish. Now, for those of you who want to sell it through a partner, two different things to be aware of with the Gumroad platform. One is the number one way I would recommend you do it is that you can allow people to sign up to be affiliates, and you can choose which products and what rate people are going to get. So I'm going to add my nice new product for SBI and Tally, and here we go, 10%. So now anyone who signs up to become an affiliate, when they sign up this form and I hit approve, because I do have to approve, which is nice. I can contact the people who asked to be a partner. When I approve that, they will get an email with links to each of these things where their customer can go buy that subscription. And then Gumroad will send them 10% automatically. For those of you who haven't watched the stream about the AppSource licensing, part of why I'm doing this is because Gumroad for EU-based customers does all the VAT reporting for you. Love it. So when you get the funds from Gumroad, VAT has already been taken out, I believe. So it's just the net, which is nice. The other option that you can do if your customers want to just buy the product through you as a partner, and you as a partner, you don't want the customer to ever come to this page and fill out credit card info, is that you can come in and you can add a discount code like partner and say, you know what, I'm going to do 10% off and unlimited use, and ta-da. There we go. Now you can add the discount code, and there we go. Now a partner could potentially subscribe on behalf of their customer and manage their billing internally for themselves, and just bill the customer each year for the subscription. So two nice little options. We are going to need some of the information about this product. So to make our licensing app work, first of all, in the licensing side of things, we are going to need a new dependency here in Tally. So let me grab the ID and all that fun stuff, so that way I don't have to type up an app ID. And we're also going to add some code to make this behind a subscription wall. So there we go. All this info about how to do this part that we're about to dive into, like the dependency, how to register your app, all that stuff is covered in the SPI or in the Spare Brain licensing repo in the wiki section on GitHub. So if you look for Spare Brain on GitHub, you'll find that, and there's a licensing repo with the wiki of all the stuff you're going to need to do that we are about to do. So now that we've got that set, we need to download symbols because I don't have the symbols for that. This does mean, I believe, if you're developing... could not download the reference symbols. Cool. Okay. So I'll take a look at that in a second. If you are developing and you have dependencies, I believe you'll have to contact me and grab a runtime version of the licensing app to throw in your Docker, I believe. A little fuzzy on that. I'm a little fuzzy on the app dependencies on AppSource sourced solutions. So I'll probably do some follow-up notes in the wiki about this licensing app and the modules involved in that. So my hunch is I probably just need to point to a different Docker I have running where I've got a lot more of the testing environment configured for large chunks of data. I've generated thousands of transactions in this environment, so it's pretty handy for things. So let's switch over to that and download symbols from there. These are just Docker boxes. Yeah, that's true. If you develop against a cloud sandbox environment, then you're all good. No stress there. It'll download the relevant apps for you. Cool. So let's see. We should get the symbols to come through in just a sec, which would be nice. Okay, so what we need to install in our environment, nice, that all worked, is in our installer code unit, which if you've never made one before, I'll be surprised, but it's just a matter of a code unit with a subtype of install, and then you do an install app per company trigger. Simple enough. And in my case, I need to add some functionality around per database level for licensing. So licensing. We are going to create a new function called register the subscription. And let's copy and paste over a bunch of info, and we're going to change it up. So I'm not going to have a version update string on this right now. So no top secret info in here. What we are going to be doing is we need to register our extension with the license management code unit. Oh, that's fun. In my official one, I'm not using a valid variable name. I gotta fix that up. I know the open source version, Todd committed a pull request that cleaned up a lot of the public version of it, so I'll fix that up. So in Gumroad, we need the product code and the product URL to connect to our subscription. So the thing we just finished, the product ID is this little nciver. It's whatever the URL was before we changed it. That's the product ID code. So we'll just grab that. So copy you. They're randomly generated. So apparently that one's real short. Cool. So now if we go to share and we copy URL, let's make sure the page loads and works. There it is. Nice. Okay. We get our fancy, terrible sales summary. Thankfully, I'm not particularly relying on that pitch at the moment, and I'll update it later. But there we go. There's the product URL, and then we get to decide a few odds and ends, like where, how many grace days do we want to give people as a trial. For this one, I'm going to bump it up to be a 14-day trial in the production environment and on any on-prem environment, because I figure it'll probably take a little while for someone to get used to it and decide whether they like it. For cloud users in Sandbox, I typically will go with a couple of months of grace period, because most Sandbox environments will die sometime in that 2-month period, and that way users don't have to activate it. So that seems perfectly fine. And most of the rest of these are documented on the wiki. So, okay. So there we go. Now we're going to register our app that it should be something that requires activation, and we're also going to need to hook into some mechanism by where we check to see if the license for this is active or not. So when you're working with your product team and you're doing licensing sort of things, you also have to decide what functionality, what should happen to your app when the license runs out. Someone forgot to update a credit card info. Do you want the app to just completely disable, defunct? How do you want to, as a team, have your solution that someone, a guy in the shipping department might be loading up the truck? How do you want that moment to happen for that guy? Does he not get to work? So you got to really think about what your strategy is when you're doing licensing of what is the potential impact. Are you going to be the source that shuts down a company's shipping department for a day, or can't invoice for a day? So think real carefully about how you implement the licensing hooks. Let's see. And then in my case, what I've done in the past that I liked pretty well was just to have a little wrapper code unit that I would reference throughout my application that interfaces with SpareBrain licensing. And that way, if I ever change my licensing engine to some other solution, there are a couple others out there that are paid ones that work with Stripe that are pretty good, but are paid. This is free. Let's create a new code unit real quick, and we're going to call this one the Intally licensing, and we'll get our prefix automatically from Waldo's delightful extension. There we go. And all we need is a pretty basic little event here that returns a Boolean and takes a Boolean to say whether or not we should show the user an error. That's it. There's not a whole lot to it there. That's it, actually. So now we just get to decide real quick what do we want to have happen when this stops working. For my thinking, since this is showing in the item card, sales order, purchase order, it's showing in a lot of mission critical places. I don't want to have those places stop responding when my key dies. So what we are going to do instead is we are going to, in the calculation side of things and in the configuration side of things, we will put some walls up around the licensing module. And if a license dies, then the data just becomes stale. And that gives someone a gentler time period to potentially fix a problem. So real speedy stuff here, so that way we can move on to the next steps, because I think we've already been going for over an hour. Let's see. So next steps on this, we are going to, in our calculation steps, we have a handling around if it's running under GUI or not. So I think the logical place for me to do is here in this calculation routine is to have that function call. In the way this app is designed, if the data becomes stale and the system administrator has it configured to warn the user that the data may be stale, they would click a button to update now. So that would run these functional routines and say, okay, there is potentially an attempt to recalculate and the GUI is allowed in that scenario. Okay, then we'll go ahead and fail with the user environment. So I'm going to come on down into my calculate for item process, which is the heart of this one here. And there's a lot of crazy if statements. So what we are going to do then is we need our new code unit. So let's do the new code unit. And here we are back over into the dev side of things. So as I said, we swing wildly between sales and marketing and development and all these other different roles just to get across the finish line. So what we are going to do then is we will check if active, and we can just pass it the parameter of GUI allowed. That's all. And if yeah, if not this, then we'll exit and bail out of it. And that's it. And then now our calculation is paywalled. So it'll just stop calculating. If they're running this in the user environment, it'll say, hey, you can't, your license is expired. Done, simple, sorted. Okay. The licensing app handles by itself, letting the system administrator know via user tasks that a license key has run out. So it does every bit of best effort it can in current version to let administrators know that there's an issue. But this is a nice, real easy way for us to hook into our licensing module. So there we go. We can swing back to our overall checklist of, did we solve our dependency? Yeah, we did. That was the only dependency we had, so now we're good. Okay. Now, we theoretically have a functional app ready for AppSource. The only thing that's currently missing, and I'm going in the wrong window here, the only thing that we're currently missing is that telemetry key, which, let's see here. I'm going to add that off screen in just a second because I want it to be built into the app that we upload to AppSource. So let me grab my I'll show you where it is. Yes, thank you. Sharing with the wide world the fact that I have credit. Thank you. Perk of being a partner, I guess. So in the SBI in Tally, let's see here. API access, I believe. We create an API key, and I think this is what we're going to do. Yeah. App Insights. I'm doing this from memory, so here's hoping I'm right. I believe we need to write annotations. Nope, I don't think this is the right path. Christoph, remind me, man. Save me from myself. Let's see here. So, when you're completely lost on something, well, good news is that these days it will tell you, here, see this for more information. Cool. I believe now this will drop me right to that error message. Cool. Okay, so this page is useful for you to look at anyways because it's going to show you what sort of info are you going to get out of telemetry. It will give you tenant level or extension level and what do you get from all of these different steps and pieces. So this is worth taking a look through anyways. I would encourage people to look at that and then they give some basic links to things, and then here is where you'll find the link to the GitHub repo that has all sorts of different KQL because they do KQL query. Let's see. So yeah, all right, let's grab the InTally, and we need our telemetry, which is going to be the connection string. It's this guy. Cool. So thank you, chat. You are wonderful. I appreciate you all the time. So yeah, up here in your app insights, in your overview, in the connection string, whip. It used to be you had to do the API key, I believe, and then they've changed it up, and now it's the full connection string. There was some changeover there. There are better blogs than I have about it, so I will let people discover and work with that themselves. Alrighty, so let's come in and take a look at our problems list. It's complaining about, yep, I didn't name those correctly. Technically, they're wrongly named. I'm not a big fan of these naming requirements. I think they're daffy. And we did only hook in the oh, I called it extension registration. I forgot I changed the name of it. This is another reason to use extensions, because if I just did code unit and I did the autocomplete and did extension reg, yep, bam, tab, control space, full, bam, it complies. I don't have to think about it. I I forget exactly. I think that one's the variable helper extension, and I love it so much. Thank you very much. Helps me avoid a very dumb rule. So, alrighty. Most of the time it's aimed at helping us save ourselves. So we do also potentially have to configure in the AppSource configuration file the what are the mandatory prefix, suffix, and all that sort of whatnot. And that, as I recall, is just an issue of I need to add an AppSource cop.json into the root folder. So let's go back to Intally and we'll paste this one in. And my actual mandatory prefix is the 3-letter code. So everything else after that's just fluff and styling, and I use it for myself. I have now created the app source cop JSON mandatory prefix, and there we go. So now it's complaining about, yeah, this part doesn't have that prefix. So let's make sure it does. There we go. Cool. So no problems detected. That doesn't mean there aren't any problems. So where do we go from here? We've now got it built. I'm going to check this in. First check in, all bajillion changes. Enjoy. Have fun with that. And we can now package this up. And what's our next step on this? So we've done all of the bits and pieces. That's cool. So let's go take a look at the technical validation checklist again. You can tell I opened this a lot because, boy, so some of the odds and ends that are a good idea is to follow the advice of this. It's not in the checklist, but there's a step here to run the technical validation yourself, and that is a very good idea. So I don't recall if you have to have done your app signing before you do the AL validation. But I am going to treat it as I probably should sign it first and then try the technical validation. So let's go with that. All right, so we're going to need to package it up for the first time. And for giggles, let's also do something crazy and, publish and make sure that we can install it into a Docker 19 environment that I have. And this environment already has the licensing app, so the dependencies should be fine. And my launch JSON is pointing to the old page ID, so that's not going to help me. Renumber your objects, change your app JSON. Okay, so if we go look at our extension management, we should see our SBI in tally, and we do, 1.0. Cool. All right, if we're developing against a cloud sandbox, just as a reminder, if you deploy things using the dev deployment technique, then it will potentially blow it up. Yep. Yeah, so here was in the launch JSON is my startup object ID. I had it pointing because I'm lazy, and lazy is another way of saying efficient in this case. It was pointing to my calculation list. So let's grab that just so I don't forget later. Pop that new number in there. Okay, so now that we've got that, at least the app file exists, let's copy that into my Docker environment. So in the BC container helper, there are a million bits and bobs. There's so many things. One of the important things that it gives us, though, is it gives us the ability to do signing, app signing right through the Docker container, and that's pretty cool. So let me grab, I used this script previously for my other apps. As you can see, I still have them open here. So let's grab the names of our application. And full name, please. And we'll do spare brain, blah, blah, blah. There we go. And you need to have your code signing certificate, your PFX file, available to the Docker image. I've already got a global environment variable. I have a global variable that is for the password for my code signing, so I didn't show that on my stream. But effectively, we can sign this app in theory. Oh, my BC container helper is way behind. That should be .21, .22 now. So, lesson learned, I need to make sure my BC container is up to date, which isn't very complicated. I believe it's just update module, but I'm not going to do it now in the middle of a stream. Hopefully it doesn't fail on me. So there we go. Now the Intally app has been signed by my official certificate, and now I can do my validation testing against it. So let's grab the validation script, which we could just run all these steps in one go. I'm just doing them one by one to show how things go. But I did not update my FLF file after I added all the object ranges, so this may blow up. I don't know when I downloaded my developer license. I did have the whole range already, but I don't know if it cares about the module assignment, which I only just did an hour ago. So let's find out. All right, so now it's looking for an app to be in. Yeah, chat's asking me for the fact that I am slacking on keeping my Docker updated. I have not implemented Steve Endo's fantastic refresh my machine every night mechanism. I build really complex data scenarios not through code, so I didn't want to risk blowing myself up. For example, when I was writing the Business Central book, I sure did not want to have all of that data blow up every day. Okay, so at the moment, I'm just going to try it right now with the US country and see if that works. If it works in US, I know what this app does. It doesn't have a whole lot of regional dependencies and everything like that. So when they run, if it runs against US and validates okay, it'll probably validate against the rest. Let's find out if that's true. So I don't know how long this will take, so we may end up doing a nice little side detour. We can start some of the next steps while this is running. Because, as you saw, I renumbered and refactored and changed a whole bunch of things about my app file. I obviously have not tried this with this app yet, so we'll see how that goes. Chat thinks it probably will take about 10 minutes or so. It does depend on internet speed and the speed of the machine that you're running it in. So let's go back to our list and look at what else can we be doing, because we've now just signed our app, so that's cool. And we made sure that the name and publisher and all that fun stuff are going to match. Yep, that's my publisher name. We're good, and we are going to name the app that, so we're good there. Okay, I think we're ready to look at the marketing side of how to set up the offer. Okay, so we need to have the app type, we need some industries, we're going to need some versions, terms and condition. We have to upload all of these individual bits and bobs. So where do we start with that? Well, we start with that in the Partner Center of Microsoft, and you have to have gotten yourself through the process of signing up for the commercial market space. I couldn't tell you the steps on this process anymore. I did this earlier this year, and then something about it didn't go correctly. I didn't have as much of a nightmare as Steve did, but I definitely had some hiccups and challenges around getting this to work correctly. So yeah, it's definitely something that you'll have to stumble your way through a little bit, but you have to get to the point where you can see that new offer button in the commercial market space setting. I ran into an issue, I want to say in the early fall, where I had this all set up, but the new offer button disappeared, and I had to go through a bunch of work to get that to be re-enabled. So let's look at what this looks like. This is one of the things that Eric covered in his video series. This is kind of where his things pick up. And you can see here we've got Dynamics 365 Business Central. Okay. Sure. Now we need to give a unique offer ID, which if we look here, they're just looking for some sort of unique primary key type thing for your offer. Okay, sure. And it needs to be lowercase, alphanumeric, dashes and underscores. Okay. SBI. And I'm keeping it simple, no punctuation whatsoever, just so that way if they decide to change it later, I'm not going to ruin my world. So SBI and tally and create. Now I'm going to open up on another screen the same exact dashboard so I can look at my settings of some of the other offers, because I don't remember exactly what everyone was. Okie dokie. All right, so very first thing, it's kind of giving you a roadmap of all the things that you're potentially going to need to think about. First of all, the overview is your general status, and the overview will show you the status of your AppSource offering and everything you need to know about its published status. We're not there yet. We got to get through the offer setup. So here's the alias, and we need to see what is the package type. Well, for Business Central, it's an add-on. You'll find that this process is a little confusing because a lot of the language doesn't make sense with Business Central. So what we are going to do is we are going to do free trial. The Get It Now and free trial are the only two options that will let the users just hit the install button. Otherwise, the Contact Me does gives them only the ability to contact you, and you will have to help them install it. I would rather people go for it. Just set up the thing, try it out. Test drive is a whole pre-built environment thing. I am not exploring that and all that sort of fun stuff. For my customer leads, and this is what I was chatting with Christoph a little bit about earlier in the stream of maybe something isn't configured correctly. I've connected this up to an Azure table and it seemed to be correct. It validated as correct. So I don't know what to tell you there. I did all the things that it made sense to do. Yeah, we're going to drop out of there. And let's see here. We got the AppSource CRM here, and I need the access keys, and I'm not too stressed about this, but I will, just for the giggles, go ahead and not show those on camera. But what it'll do is it'll give you a key and a connection string that you then plug into the settings in the Partner Center. So I think that it wants the connection string, not the key. So same sort of thing. Let's grab the connection string. Just again, don't know what abuses people can do with the data, so figure I'd keep those off of camera. Let's see. Connect. And you can hit validate, and it'll test, can I connect up to that Azure table? And sure enough, connects just fine. At that table, I've got 20 installs of my other two apps, roughly. It's empty. This is the exact same process I've done for all those. So I don't know what's up with that. Anyways, moving on. Cancel. Daft thing, we need to hit save before we go to the next section, or it will discard all those changes. Okay, and now we've got to get into the fun, wonderful world of we've got to set some categories on this, which I don't know about anyone else. I have not found these to be particularly useful or relevant to Business Central categories. I guess this is kind of analytics. Sure. And I guess kind of it's IT management business applications, I guess. Sure. You can choose industries, but you have to choose categories. I do not choose industries because I don't know. None of the options when you do click plus make any special sense to my world. And then I've got a EULA terms and condition type thingamadealy that is ready to go. So I'm just going to copy and paste that. You will need to work with your You will need to work with your legal team to have good terms and condition text. Enjoy that. Offer listing. Okay, and now this gets into the mechanics of what does your offer actually look like. And there is a variety of things that you have to have. Like I've run into issues where the search results summary wasn't long enough. It needed to be longer. Like there's a few odds and ends. I'm gonna just cheat a little and pull from my earlier description. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Solve common individual. Sure. That seems like it's good enough. Okay, now one of the things that you need to have in your description is a chunk of text like so. Supported editions, countries, and languages. In my case, I support the Essential and Premium. Works perfectly fine. My solution is not country specific, but it is, at the moment, only English. There are some clever ways that you can go around and do some AI work on creating translation files. I appreciate people who are willing to trust their solution to AIs doing translation files, but having moved from an English-speaking country to a country where the default language is not English, I would not recommend trusting AI with translation files. Hire professionals or at least local proofreaders. I wouldn't do it. So, okay, but at our beginning of our description, we need to have some sort of info, and you need to say more useful stuff. For example, one of the things they don't give you is they don't give you a whole lot of linking back to your own sites or pages to tell users more about it. So it's a good idea to, I'm just copying and pasting from my Data Braider product. So let's go with InTally is available under subscription-based licensing. It's available for $140. The free trial, I bumped this up to 14 days in a production environment for this. And the rest of that text is all the same. And to find out more or to acquire the license key to activate, please visit. And there we go. So that's good stuff to update. And then we'll also need to be clearer about what exactly, what a daft little editor, what exactly we're promising people here. So let's give a couple of summary blurbs from our Word document here. Bam. Configure your item availability. And yes, I'm continuously sassing Steve a little tiny bit in my AppSource submissions because I will often reference you can add just one field. So enjoy that, Steve. Okay, let's see. So that's enough for me. And then we also need to think about search keywords. So I want inventory, stock, and I don't know, available. Sure, some keywords that potentially. I don't know that I've ever seen the keywords really help with the search any more than in the description, so I don't know what the value on that is, but sure, whatever. They recommend you have them. So then you need your help link, and you need your privacy statement. And this is, as I mentioned, then you have to have some of these things kind of set up and ready to go before you upload things. Yeah, I agree. Chat suggesting availability might be a better choice there. Sure. Let's see. So we can now just do, all of this information that I'm sharing is public, so, or I'm not worried about spammers harvesting things, so whatever. If you feel the need to call me, we can chat. Sure. Cool. All right, so now in the supporting documents, this is where they're looking for the idea of some sort of brochures or white papers or technical manuals, all that sort of stuff. But fun gotcha, you absolutely cannot have spaces in the file name. I don't know why. Whatever. So I prepped my PDF file with some basics and named it in a way that would work just fine. So there we go. You have to have one, but no more than 3. Okay. Sure. Okay. And then you also have to specifically give it a name here, which is what will show in the AppSource listing, I believe. Sure. And then we need to give it a logo. And it must be between 216 and 350 by 350, and it can only be a PNG. Well, good news, I've already prepped that. And then we get into the fun, wonderful world of you have to provide at minimum 3, but no more than 5 screenshots of precisely 1280 by 720, and they have to be PNG. And as much as I feel there are restrictions and whatnot, a lot of Business Central screens don't particularly look great at 1020 by 780, so it can be a real challenge to make them useful set of screenshots. One of my to-dos that I want to do is, you'll notice down here that they have the ability to add 4 videos to demonstrate your offer. I'm currently drafting up and scripting some demonstration video clips to put on YouTube that then I'll be able to put on the listings. You can update these listings without updating your app version. So if you just have a typo in your description, but the listing won't be updated until it goes through all of the same validation processes, even if it's the same version. So just bear that in mind. Same rules apply in the screenshots. You need to not have spaces in the file name. And it's a little sluggish on uploading, but not too bad today. You also have to add captions. So overview, I don't know where these captions show. We'll take a look in a moment or two. Update overview of Intally. It's kind of a summary view in one screenshot of all the different things it does. Detailed look at configuration screens. Sure. That sounds right. Drill down into glory. No, data. There we go. All right, so once again, gotta save before you go to another step, or you get to redo all that work. Thankfully, it warns you. Okay, and then we get into availability. While we're plugging along on this, let's take a quick look at what failed. Okay, and we have an unexpected error while validating app. Guess what this wonderful thing is? No matter how many times I turn it off with group policy, no matter how many times I beat the heck out of the registry, real-time protection turns on and it breaks Docker. Thanks. Yep, let's run the script again, but at least this time it won't take as long because it has pulled the images and artifacts and everything like that. So there we go. Yeah, laugh at my pain. I feel it. Like, just Defender, man. Defender. Okie doke. Now, the availability, you get to choose what markets do you want to sell it into. If you have regional specific functionality, you need to tie it to only specific marketplaces, then here's where you can choose where. In my case, this is just a generic item card tool. So, cool. The preview audience, whenever you're doing an offer listing, it'll generate a preview link that you can go to. And the way it does that is it's as real as the regular listing, but it adds a little URL parameter that is a key, and that's what this is. So if I just showed you that it's in Tally, then whenever my preview version gets generated, you'd be able to go peek at my preview version. Oh no. You've all seen it, so I'm not worried about that. And then technical configuration. Yes, okay. So this is where we need to upload the signed and validated .app package file here. And if there are any dependencies, this is where you would also upload those as library extensions. I'm a little fuzzy on, in my case, I've got a signed copy of the SpareBrain licensing app that's available in AppSource. I don't know if you build your dependency off of my SpareBrain licensing AppSource offer, if you have to have something to upload here, or if it will know to go to AppSource to go get that app. I do not know. So that's a fun question. Oh, good. It's downloading some more stuff again. Excellent. Okay. So then, because you will be asked the question if you're doing this with any of the folks in your office, ooh, co-sell with Microsoft, does that mean that there's monetization with Microsoft? We can like do promotional stuff? No. We're in Business Central. We're lucky we can sit at the table. We certainly don't get to sit at the big people table. So there is no co-sell with Microsoft stuff here we can do. Okay. Let's see. I think that was it. Interesting. I thought we were... There's a couple of steps I was expecting to be asked about, and I'm not seeing them, and I'm wondering where... aha. Okay. On this supplemental content page, there are some required things. What release are you targeting? For example, you could, sometime in the upcoming few months, you could be building something that only works with 20. So you would say, works with next major. It doesn't work with current. So you can do some validation handling on this. And then you can also choose, even though this looks like checkboxes, you can only pick one. So yeah. If you require premium functionality, turn on premium. So like manufacturing and all that such. And then here's one of the things I was referencing, the key usage scenario. This was a document you had to provide that explicitly told how to test your scenario and provide any keys and all that sort of stuff. And you also... in my case, I have registration keys. If I didn't have a trial mode and I needed to give them a key, I would have to give them a Word doc that has all the test account information, blah, blah, blah. And separately, there's a place where we can upload the tests for doing the automated testing. This key usage scenario and app test automation, both required on the offer, they don't use them. All right. One error found. Unable to install. And it is because... okay. So here's my issue. It's spinning up a new container, and it's depending on the AppSource license. So the fact that I'm using a local Docker container to do the testing on this, I need to have the library app, which is this install apps. There we go. So in this test validation, I need to have that library app in there. Blah. Okay. Fingers crossed that won't take too long to run. Yeah, so you still have to have a file to upload in those because it will do validation. That's fun. Fun fact, and I'm going to do it again. In my .app that I uploaded, because it has to be a .app file, it can't be any other type of file. In my test apps automation, the previous one that I uploaded for my prior apps was this text file, which contains a link that will be very familiar for a number of trolling sort of folks in the crowd. And it's one of the many ways that I know that no one looks at it. Oh yeah. Anyways, so no one looks at it. But it needs to be a .app file. So there we go. There you go. My app is never going to give you up. So, since they don't require the key usage scenario, but they require to be a .pdf, well, you can have that as a .pdf too. Good stuff. All right, so now we'll add our nice shiny new PDF file we just made. Enjoy, team. And the best part about this is that some Microsoft people are probably going to watch us at some point and be like, you did? Yeah, I did. Okay, so it is currently in the background running the AppSource comp, doing all the validation. It's checking my rule sets in there. It's making sure all of the steps that they're going to do in the automated validation are working. And holy smokes, once I fix the library dependency, validation pass first time. That's exciting. Okay, that means that I don't have to go back to any of my settings in my app.json. I don't have to go change any of the variable names or any of the other nonsense and then re-sign, revalidate. We're just good to go. First try. Awesome. All right, so now we can take our signed functional .app file out of our little Docker server here, and I'm going to drop that into my AppSource folder here, just so I've got it nicely synced up to my SharePoint as just a extra level of backup. Why not? We're going to save that draft, and we'll go back to our technical configuration page. Now, we are coming up on then the end of our stream, because that's going to be about it. I was hoping to finish up in 2 hours, and looks like it's going to happen. That's amazing. All right, so the SBI in tally, going on to AppSource. And save draft. I always save before I hit review and publish, but let's just do a quick run through real quick again. We've got add-on, it's a free trial. We've got the Azure hookup. I'll talk to Christoph about that. According to Christoph in chat, since the dependency that I have is already published in AppSource, the licensing app, I should not need to upload that during the offer stage, which is awesome. So that'll make life easier for anyone else who wants to use the licensing app. So nice. All right, so we've got our categories, we've got all our legal, we've definitely still got the logo. I've seen that glitch out, so I'm checking through everything. All right, yeah, well, you've got all the search results. We've got our description. We have the mandatory required various things. I don't know why that's bright blue. That's a little unnerving. Sure. We've got all the contacts. We've got our brochure. Looks good. It's available in all markets. So yeah, we are good to go. Review and publish. Okay. Wow. And then theoretically, if they were going to do any sort of testing, here's where you provide some test credentials, and they do some checking and validating here at this stage again, and boom. I don't know if this is going to pass all the validation steps. As you can see here, we get like this neat little overview. I don't know if this is going to pass all validation steps, but there we go. I will presumably get notification on this probably tomorrow morning, given time of day, on whether it succeeded or failed, which will have me in under 1 week from idea to published on AppSource. And in 2 hours, we took it from a PTE custom extension to AppSource ready and validated and published on AppSource. That's pretty crazy, guys. Okay, well, just to zoom in a little on what's going on here. That really was a not very successful zoom. Thanks, guys. Let's see, can we squish that? No, we cannot squish that. Okay, so what it's going to do is it's going to, on their side, do the automated validation steps. It's going to do some finalizing if there was any test drive stuff, it would provision it, but we don't have any of that. We already did the validation on the lead management stuff, so that'll go through real quick. The slow part is in the preview creation. What it will do is when it gets to this stage, it updates the page here and gives you a link right underneath to review. And then it sits at publisher sign off waiting for you to review that listing. It then shows you, here's what your offering on AppSource will look like, exactly as it would look. And that allows you then to hit OK. And then theoretically it goes through manual validation just to make sure there's nothing really bizarre about your AppSource. I don't know what they're actually doing in that manual validation other than looking at it to go, yeah, it looks like a thing. And then once they hit the approve on that, it goes through the final publish steps, and you will then see. I'll drag over my Databrader version. So what it looks like is it gives you the warning here to say that once it creates the preview, it takes potentially a few hours for that preview to sync over onto the AppSource preview link. So like if you find like a typo, a broken link, some sort of issue that you have to create and fix, when it gets to this preview creation stage, you may not see for a few hours the changes in the link here in the AppSource preview. And then once it gets through the publish stages, then boom, it drops you to your AppSource page. And this is roughly how this looks. So for example, here we get our overview. It shows us, our logo, who it's from, that it's a free trial. I don't know why it says it twice. Twice is free. Hey! And here's all the required supported editions. Here's the at a glance stuff, so you can pop those open and see, that stuff. That's cool. No ratings yet. Hopefully people play with this soon and start enjoying life with it, because anytime I've done a demo for someone personally, their jaw has dropped that it works the way it does. So hopefully we'll see some 5 stars soon. And then in the details section, this is where customers can potentially jump off to go to the support or help pages. And this is where they can download that brochure PDF that we uploaded. You'll notice nowhere in here is directly a link to your website. So that's why it's important that if you do want to encourage people to come to you, you need to do that in this description section. There is no publisher about us page that directs people to sign up to a newsletter or follow on LinkedIn or follow on Twitter. None of those things are here. It's the least marketing tool I've ever seen. Sorry, AppSource guys, it's not a good product. It's sufficient, but it's not good. So, all right. Okay. Other little bits and bobs to be aware of, because I think we're finally at just about the wrapping up point and can call this a day here. The only other things that you should be aware of is if you've done your app insights key and all that sort of stuff, when you come into the logs for your application insights, you'll actually see those validation steps, not only from you running it in Docker, but also when AppSource does the yeah. Can I just do straight up traces and just get everything? Yeah. So there we go. Yeah. That was from me doing the validation, and there you go. So you get all the trace data and everything like that coming from the app inside of the Docker images and see that it's getting validated. When they do the automated stuff, you'll see a whole flurry of them because they test them against all of the markets, I believe, that you've said you are going to do business in. So since I said everything, it's going to flurry through, and it's kind of nice because it gives you a sample set of data for your new application insights that you can test, your Power Automate and your Power BI stuff against this data and have something to make sure that it's working before the first customer hits install. So, okay, well, hopefully this will be valuable and useful for a lot of people, and maybe also in the process they went, hey, that IntelliJ is pretty nice too, so maybe we should use it. Okay, well, lots of cool stuff. I don't know the answer to the perfectly legit question about the telemetry for on-prem. I feel like that's a bit more of a question mark and depends on the environment, because there's so many things that you can fiddle with in on-prem. It's a good question. I've got a couple on-prem environments. I can test that out and come back to you on that. So if anyone else has some questions, we've covered a lot of ground, I know. But if other folks have questions, I do see them in chat. I've seen them from 3 different venues so far, both in the YouTube chat. I've seen it from the Twitch stream and all that fun stuff. So I think that covers all the questions I've seen so far. Cool. All right. Yeah. I think that there's probably going to be a lot of good content coming out beyond what I've covered around a lot of this telemetry stuff. I know Kenny and a few other people are very keen to teach more about this. There's Dynamics Con coming up in March, and we're in the submission window for that. So it'll be interesting to see what sort of telemetry things bubble up into that stream. So that'll be cool. I'm deciding if I'm joining in on the race on this and on what topic on the Dynamics Con submission winning thing. Cool. And yeah, if you're stuck on things, you can find the BC Discord. I've got it usually pretty easy to find on a couple of different platforms. If you are looking for an easy jump off on that, the Design Patterns and Best Practices site, which people should definitely be reading, following a lot of the rules and best practices are what made that validation work first try. You'll find the BC Discord is right linked in there. So you can just jump right in and get started with that. Easy place to find a lot more knowledgeable people than I am. I got a lot of great useful info asking people. Hopefully they won't mind me sharing, but in the AppSource channel here in the BC professional space, I asked some good questions about, before I hit create an offer, is there anything I should be thinking about? And a lot of the things we went through today are coming from people that they gave me good insight about and some different things to rely on and all that sort of thing. So definitely a great place to ask a bigger group of people who know about a topic and share. Yeah, so hopefully that covers a lot for everyone. And for those of you who are joining in the Beer and Art tomorrow, hopefully my voice will be back by then. If you aren't following that, my nav blog on Twitter, I believe, is Christoph's handle, and he definitely links to the Beer and Art. Tomorrow's one is going to be our holiday one, so it'll be a festive little occasion. All right, guys. Hopefully there will be lots of value to this, and people will have a good time getting up and running. I hopefully made things a little easier for some of the smaller partners, giving a strategy for low-level licensing, or at least on-ramping to some of the more fully featured tools. So, all right. Well, thank you everyone for sticking around. That was a long stream for me, but we got through everything. So hopefully it helps, and feel free to reach out to me if you guys get stuck on some odds and ends. I might redirect you to the Discord because I might not know. All right. Take care, everybody.